Let's make a bookcase. When I was finishing up the basement, I really wanted to cover this old vent thing, but it was summer, I was sick of being down here, so I skipped it.
Lazy.
But the seasons have changed, and it's time to do it. My plan was to put a bookcase here so that way I could hide all this, but also house this amazing vintage sound organ that I found. This thing. I could just buy a bookcase, but anything I was even slightly into was upwards of $400 or way more. Nothing's exactly what I want, so I'm just gonna make it. I want to do a little experiment to see how much it costs to build it myself rather than buying it from a store. I've also gotten some messages from some of you about making a video on how to build the record stand in our living room or the little console in our entryway. So this video will pretty much give the basics to make anything you want. I want to show that anybody could do this, so I'm keeping the design pretty simple, but I'm also using the old trick of getting the wood cut at your local hardware store. So you don't even need a saw for this, all you're really going to need is a drill. I already measured and got the dimensions that I want for the bookcase, so let's go get the wood and get started.
How to with Brew City builds.
Let's go.
Okay, I got the 1x8 pine boards cut to the size I need for the sides of the bookcase, as well as the top and bottom, and the boards that are going to be the actual shelves. I also had a 1/4-inch piece of plywood cut that's going to be used as the backing, and I ordered these 8-inch legs online that I use on all the furniture I build. I love this company. They have a whole bunch of different style options as well as different sizes, so it's good. I'll link them as well as everything else I'm using in the video, so if you want to check it out, it'll be in the description box below. And yeah, that's it. So now that I got the goods, let's get to it. First thing I did was lay down the side and top and bottom pieces. Then I took a drill bit the width of a screw head and drilled my pilot holes. I did one hole for each corner so it would be nice and secure. Once I had all my pilot holes, I went in with some wood glue, which is very important. You definitely need to use wood glue. Then I drilled in my 1.25-inch screws. Then it was time to start installing the boards that were going to become the shelves. So I measured every 13 inches so that way the spacing would be nice and even between each one. Once I marked all those measurements, I went back in with a square and made a line so that way I knew exactly where to drill the holes. This is good to do just for peace of mind to know that you'll be screwing into wood on the other side when the time comes. I always do it to avoid having to fix problems later on. Once I had all those pilot holes made, it was time to secure those shelves. I used wood glue again, which you don't see, but I'm definitely using it on each side. Then I'm using those same 1.25-inch screws to secure these as well. I flipped over the piece, which I didn't show once I had in all the screws on the top, so that way I could get all the ones in on the bottom and have them all line up. You may have to adjust it a little bit and kind of hit it and move it around to make sure it's super straight, but make sure you do that because otherwise you're going to have crooked shelves. Once all those screws were in and I checked that everything was level and good, I started in on my wood putty. You're for sure going to want to use wood putty to fill all these holes in. It'll make it so you won't even notice where the screws are once it's finished. I did 2 coats of this and then I let it dry overnight so it would be super cured and then I could sand it. You can do this by hand, but I have a hand sander, so I did it with that. I started with 180 grit sandpaper and then I went in with 220 to finish it off. I did this to the plywood that's going to be used as the backing as well. Now that we have a built bookcase, it was time to get off all that extra dust, so I went in with a vacuum just to make sure I got it as clean as possible. Now we're getting into the good stuff, so I did a little pre-stain on there just to even out the porosity in the wood. I find that with pine it gets a little patchy if I don't do this, so you don't have to do it, but I would recommend it if you want a little bit more of an even tone in your stain. The directions say to leave it on for 15 minutes to soak in and then you just wipe off the excess. For this one there really wasn't any excess, but I just made sure, so I went around and wiped it all down. And then it was time for the stain. I'm using the shade Special Walnut. I really like how it has like a warm kind of mid-century color to it. There's so many choices of stain colors, so either go to the hardware store to check it out or you can go online and kind of see what your options are for what you want to do. The first coat was looking a little bit too light, so I went back in with a second coat to darken it up a bit. Then it was time to stain those legs. I love these legs. Whatever I build, they always make it just look a little bit more elevated, so I always use them. Then the final thing to stain was the plywood. Once that was dry and wiped off, I attached the back to the frame. I used 1-inch finishing nails and a good old hammer. I did a nail about every 6 inches so that way everything was on there nice and tight. I had to secure the middle of the backing down, not just the edges, to the shelves, so I used some painter's tape and lined it up on each of the shelves so I knew I'd be sinking the nail into the wood instead of going into nothing. Poly time! For this I used a matte polyurethane and just kind of went in on all the surfaces. This particular one says you only need 1 coat, but generally if you do poly, you have to do 1 coat, sand it, and then do another, but I find that I like this one because it is pretty thick and it leaves it pretty smooth. I also had to do that for the legs. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I used a fresh foam brush for each step of the pre-stain, stain, and then the poly. By the next day, everything had cured, so I could install those legs. It's pretty simple. You just screw on the brackets with the screws that come with them, and then you screw on the legs. I want the bookcase to be super flush with the wall, so I cut out a square where the outlet's going to be. I measured where the outlet would be, and then I marked with the actual outlet plate so I knew exactly where to cut. Then I went in with a jigsaw and cut it out. I used a 1-inch drill bit to cut out 2 holes for the power cords of the sound organ and the speaker. Once all that was done, I did one last little cleanup with a vacuum, and then it was time to bring it to its proper spot. Perfect fit, baby. Love it! There's literally an inch between the ceiling and the top of the bookcase, so I think it feels pretty custom. Now I'm going to put this and the rest of the stuff on the shelves, and then this little project will be done. I think my little experiment worked out. The grand total came to like 128 or something like that, so not bad. Either way, I love it. It turned out exactly how I wanted. It fits like a glove in that little nook, and it definitely goes with the 70s vibe that we have going on down here. Hopefully this inspires you to build something yourself. If you do end up making anything, tag Brew City Builds on Instagram or send me a DM because I want to see. Anyway, I would love to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments, or if you have any questions, you can also leave them there. I would super appreciate it if you push that little like button if you were into this video. And if you want to be notified when my next vid comes out, you can totally push that bell icon. Thanks so much again for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you soon. Bye. I was just putting this box away and saw that it says color organ instead of sound organ, so I've been calling it the wrong thing the whole video.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
What are you gonna do? Anyway, that's it. Bye.